Welcome to Sinful's Horror Stories. Today's video features true scary stories sent in from viewers like yourselves. If you want this channel to continue, email your true scary stories to thesinfulsavant@gmail.com. I'll leave a link to my email in the description box below at the end of the video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do it now for future content. Sit back, relax, stay sinful. Story number 1. I had just finished an 8-hour shift at my job. I was sitting outside in front of the store smoking a cigarette when a man approached me. I get off at 11 o'clock at night. Sometimes sketchy people wander the streets late at night in front of the store I work at. I was waiting for my Lyft ride to arrive. The man was standing so close to me, it was making me uncomfortable. He looked like a homeless person or somebody down on their luck. I thought he was going to ask me for a cigarette, but he didn't. The man then started talking about how he had just been released from prison and had done 8 years. The man said he used to fight people in the streets and would knock them out cold. Now I was getting scared. I was getting ready for this guy to swing at me at any moment, but he didn't. But if he did, I would have to dodge his punch and run back to the store I work at and scream for help. He raised his voice and talked about the fact that you can't really fight people anymore because there are cameras everywhere now. People will call the cops on you if you even lay a finger on them. I said, yeah, that's true, and nodded in agreement. I was still waiting for this guy to pounce on me, but he didn't. I was just waiting for him to leave at this point. A guy walked out of the store that I work at, and I think that was the man's friend. He told the guy I was talking with, "Let's go." I was finishing my cigarette, so the guy asked if he could have a few drags and finish it. At that moment, my Lyft ride arrived. I told the man that I had to go and that I was going to finish my cigarette later. The man became angered but started walking away. He shouted back at me and called me a punk ass. He walked away with the other man. I heard his friend say, "What happened?" I had never been so relieved to see a Lyft driver in my life. I was just so happy that that guy was gone. And that's my story of how I almost fought a stranger right outside of my job. Story number 2. A few years ago, I started a new job as a hospice nurse. I worked in a home setting and worked mostly night shifts. My job was to make my patients as comfortable and pain-free during their last days on Earth. So this night, I was assigned to go to an assisted living facility. As I entered the room, the patient's daughter was sitting next to my patient who was sleeping. She said to me that right before I walked in, she saw angel hands on top of her father. I smiled, not knowing what to say. We continued to chat, and the water faucet in the bathroom turned on by itself. She gets up and says, "She's here." I was shocked, but not really scared. There was a peaceful feeling in the room. The man's daughter goes into the bathroom to turn off the faucet. I asked her, "Who are you talking about?" She said her mother had come for her father. Her mother passed away a few years prior. She finally leaves after about 30 minutes of visiting, and I continue with my job making my rounds to my patients. Around 3:30 in the morning, I'm sitting in the recliner right in front of my patient, and I doze off. I wake up and see an older lady touching his face. Everything in the room was black and white. Then the lady with a big smile turns to me and says, "And how are you?" I jumped out of my chair like a rocket. I wondered if I was fully awake or not. I was so scared my shift couldn't end quick enough that night. The next night I didn't really want to go back, so they assigned someone else. The man passed away at 3:30 in the morning the very next night, at the exact same time when I saw that lady touching him. That experience was truly horrifying for me. Story number 3. This story takes place in the late 1990s when I was 16 years old. I would sleep with a candlelight in my room because my stepdad was a jerk and didn't want us leaving any lights on. I was always scared in this house because of the negative and dark energy. I would wake up in the middle of the night with the candlelight flickering really high in the dark room. On several occasions, I couldn't turn over in my bed because there was a heavy pitch black shadow lying next to me. Another time I was taking a nap in the living room, and a small child started jumping and laughing on the couch next to me. I quickly woke up in a major panic, but then realized there was nothing there. A few years later, after I moved out, the landlord told my mom that the house had a dark history. Apparently, someone was shot to death during a drive-by shooting in this home. The landlord's daughter moved into that house right after my mom moved out. She passed away due to overdose. I still have nightmares from that old house. Story number 4. My 14-year-old daughter and I were home alone for a week and had just experienced a very bad storm, which caused our water to be shut off. It was a Thursday night and we were preparing to leave the next morning to go out of town. We needed to run to the local dollar store to grab jugs of water for our pet sitter to give all of our pets while we were gone. Our pet sitter came later than expected to get the keys and instructions. That was no problem for us, but we made it to the store just minutes before it closed at 9 p.m. As we arrived, we took note of how few cars there were in the parking lot, as it is usually packed every time we go. My daughter and I decided to split up once we got into the store and grabbed what we needed to make the trip as quick as possible. As soon as we walked in, we both spotted a man just standing motionless, staring directly at us. We gave each other a quick look and went in different directions to get what we needed. My daughter spotted him again next. He was watching her from a short distance. She quickly grabbed her things and came to find me. As she was finishing grabbing her things, he appeared in the same aisle I was. The man was about 5 feet tall and gave off pure evil vibes. The way he stared, unblinking, his body language facing directly to me, his eyes, like that of someone completely out of their mind. Plus, the fact that he didn't have a basket or anything in his hands from the store. All of this was just wrong. I dealt with plenty of creeps in my life, but never anyone like this. I decided we need to get the hell out of there and quickly. My daughter and I met up and briefly mentioned how creepy this guy was acting while throwing jugs of water into the cart. When we went to go to the checkout, he was at the register. So I said, "Oh, I forgot something back over there. Come on." We walked around for a few minutes out of sight of this man, hoping he would be gone by the time we walked up to the checkout. When we approached the checkout, we saw that he was checking out, and the only other person in the store was behind him in line. So we thought, okay, he has plenty of time to leave the store and be gone by the time we get outside. Nope. After he checked out, he moved over to the next empty aisle and proceeded to go through all of the things he bought, as if he was organizing them in different bags. All the while, this man was never taking his eyes off of us. He finally left the store as we were paying. I felt so relieved as we watched him leave, but knew we still had to get to the car. The store was closing after we left, so we had no choice but to leave. As we stepped into the darkness that was the parking lot, we immediately noticed that this man had pulled his car right next to mine on the passenger side. He had his driver's side door open, and he was sitting half in his car and half out. The man also had music absolutely blasting. What was this guy doing? Why do stupid things always happen to me? As these thoughts raced through my mind, my daughter instinctively crossed in front of me as we walked to the car and jumped onto the driver's side back seat as I unlocked the doors instead of the passenger seat as she normally would. Keep in mind, my daughter and I literally look like twins. A bit older looking, of course, but the same tiny 5'3", 100 pounds, most vulnerable looking woman ever. However, we are not. We know how to protect ourselves if need be. We get into the car, and what do we do now? Leave and risk him following us and running us off the road? No. Go back into the closed store where the only employees were two older women? No. Call the cops? Maybe later. I decided to take out my phone and start recording as my daughter quickly texted my other daughter our location and what was happening. Even though she was in Arizona, at least someone knew where we were. I passed my daughter pepper spray to hold on to, and I put my own pepper spray in the hoodie pocket. I decided the best thing to do was wait him out. I stepped out of the car and casually started smoking a cigarette as I kept looking over to see what he was doing and recording the whole time. I didn't want to show fear because I wasn't about to let this guy get the jump on me, even though I was scared as hell because my daughter was with me. After all, that is one of the main things taught in self-defense. Look aware and appear confident even if you're not. He just sat there watching us listening to his horrible music. If this man was trying not to draw attention to this situation, he was failing miserably. He had every light on inside and outside of his car. He actually had a pretty nice car, a new Cadillac two-door sedan, but it had these obviously identifying bright neon green lights that lit up the entire undercarriage of the car. By the way, he was so intently staring at me I felt sick to my stomach. It was like he was about to pounce at any second. What would he have done if my daughter and I were not paying attention? She had gone onto the side of the car where he was. I truly believe that it would not have ended well. After about 10 minutes of this, he backed out of his parking spot and parked directly behind my car, so I couldn't leave even if I wanted to. He opened his passenger window and started staring again. I was so angry. Still recording, I held up my phone directly facing him. He then parked in another spot and continued to stare, hanging out of his car as I recorded his dumbass the whole time. This guy gave zero cares about anything I did or how obvious he was being. A few minutes later, he slammed his door shut and peeled out of the parking lot, down the street lightly burning rubber and leaving a trail of smoke behind. I've never seen that car again, despite it being a very noticeable car. I hope I never do, but if I do, I'll be sure to call the police. He's clearly not right in the head, and who knows what he might be capable of. To the idiot, I have no idea what you really wanted, but from what my daughter and I gather, you're the worst wannabe kidnapper ever. Thank you guys for watching and listening. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe for future content. Email your true scary stories to thesinfulsavant@gmail.com. I've been getting a lot more stories the past couple of weeks, and I truly appreciate the time and effort it takes to write them. Until we meet again, stay sinful.